Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and this is the 2024 LEGO Employee Holiday Gift. It's celebrating all of the different global presence that LEGO has across many different countries and iconic animals from those countries. It's a really special item, and it's only given to employees of the LEGO Group. However, I was able to buy this one on the secondhand market for around $250. Let's jump into taking a look right now. Alright, this is set number 400-2024. It doesn't necessarily have a retail price given that it was an employee gift, but I do want to showcase what this has to offer, especially compared to some of the other employee gifts of the past, and you can decide if it's worth it to pick it up on the secondhand aftermarket. Since I bought mine back in January, I think I might have overpaid a little bit, especially with shipping from Hungary. I again paid $250, but I'm seeing ones pop up on eBay and on Bricklink for closer to $150, so you can probably pick it up for around that much, especially because this is sent to pretty much every employee. As I mentioned, this is a celebration of the national animal of every country in which the LEGO Group currently has a factory, 7 in total. Denmark for the mute swan, USA with the bison, Mexico with the golden eagle, Hungary with the Turul, Czech Republic with the two-tailed lion, China with the giant panda, and Vietnam with the water buffalo. It's actually a really clever display, and the way it works is that each of the individual animals connect via clips to the main 2x2 base, which is a really nice design, and I totally can see this being the centerpiece of some sort of an actual minifigure scale layout. Like, I could see someone making a LEGO factory or LEGO headquarters and putting this in the center of a roundabout. It's just a really cool looking display, and I really like how you're able to display it a number of different ways. If you just want the 2x2 brick elevated on a stand, you have these extra 2x4 plain black tiles, which you can use to mount around the sides of it and cover up the clip connections. These plain tiles are technically supposed to go on top of the way the labels are done in terms of each animal, but they also do include the native language version of the animal spelling themselves, so I chose to actually include both of those on the display instead of just storing them inside the 2x2 brick, which is really where you're supposed to do it. The way it works is it includes 2 sets of stickers for every single animal, and you can choose to display one or the other on the front and then put the plain black tile on the top, but for me I chose to just use the 2x2 brick to store the standard plain black tiles because I think that the display looks a lot better having both versions of the name there. This brick also introduces what I believe is an exclusive print for the set, which is the 2x2 tile with the LEGO logo on it meant to signify an enlarged stud. We've of course gotten this in sticker form for the 2015 LEGO Ant-Man set, which is pretty cool. They got it in the 76039 Ant-Man Final Battle, where he was fighting alongside a pair of giant LEGO bricks, but this is extra special because it's actually printed. At least as far as I can tell, this does not appear in any other set, so this is the one exclusive print for this set. Moving onwards to the actual animals though, I do want to give a close-up look to each animal by themselves, starting off with Denmark, of course, the home of the LEGO brick. The swan is honestly one of the simpler models out of all of them, but I actually really love the shaping here. They're utilizing some of the new wedges and elements introduced for the Speed Champions theme to introduce some very nice and organic curves, especially when it comes to the wings. There's no articulation for this swan, and it pretty much is just fixed as it is, but I don't really think any articulation was really needed for something like this. As an icon of Denmark, I also like how they were able to introduce some pretty nice detail into the stand as well. They're utilizing the transparent clear pagoda tile element pieces, which look really good as a splash the swan is making as it glides through the water, and the building techniques used for both the base and the swan are simple but effective. Moving on to the next animal, let's take a look at the water buffalo, which is a representation of Vietnam, and this is a decidedly more complex model than the swan. It features multiple points of articulation, and you can even remove it from the base and kind of play with it on its own, which I guess technically you can do with every animal, but this one feels a lot more playable than some of the others. You can see the 2 stickers there, one in Vietnamese and one in English, as well as the relatively simple base that it's standing on, although I do like the addition of the frog there too, it just adds a lot to the scenery. The head is mounted on a mixel joint, each of the legs can articulate on the Technic pins there, and I also think this one might look the best best out of all of the articulatable animals because the Technic pins being in black actually blend into the color scheme, and they actually bothered to actually make the lower parts of the legs a little bit bulkier by adding in 1x1 tiles on top of the studs. You can see it even has a tail utilizing the Star Wars Darksaber element, which is the first time that this piece has appeared outside of a LEGO Star Wars set. And that's quite exciting to me, because if the piece isn't license locked, I would imagine we could even see it pop up in different colors for something like Ninjago. Going back to this build here, I think that this one is a little bit more simplistic than some of the other animals, at least in terms of the stylization. It feels a bit more cartoony, and that's one thing I do want to point out. Some of the animals feel a little bit more chibi and stylized than others, and speaking of which, it's time to move on to the giant panda from China. This one to me definitely feels the least like an actual animal and more like a cute representation of an animal, as opposed to some of the other ones which more look like one-to-one replicas of what the animal's supposed to be. So while there is maybe a little bit of clashing styles present in the build, I actually really like this as a standalone model. It's a bit of a step above a standard polybag build, and I really like just how clever some of the building techniques used are. From mounting the legs at an angle to utilizing different curves and studs in the side pieces to give it a more unique body, this is really well done. And I also like how you can kind of articulate the arms as well. The face is maybe the weakest part of the model. It feels a little blocky to me, and while I do like the usage of the relatively new white D tiles, which you can use on the sides and top of the head, I definitely feel like this could have used a few more iterations just to make the head feel a bit more realistic and rounded, although I do like the bamboo shoots surrounding it. Moving on from this though, we can take a look at the golden eagle from Mexico. And this is a pretty cool one. I really like how you integrated the snake into the build, having it grasp the snake as its prey, and you even have some of the claws showcasing the dust erupting from the sand here as it descends upon the snake. This one feels the most kinetic out of all the sculptures, and the only downside here is that unfortunately the wings are pretty much just folded off to the side. I feel like this could have really benefited from a position where at least the wings might be flapping outwards, almost similar to the next bird we're about to see, although I guess that would have made them feel a little bit too similar. I just feel like with something this kinetic and having a sculpture where there's literally sand and dust erupting from the bird landing and the claws are outstretched grasping the snake, it is a bit of a missed opportunity to have the wings just fully on its side, almost as if it's just kind of sitting there perched. Overall though, I do like it for what it is. It just feels that maybe they could have just improved it a bit more. Moving on from that, we go on to one of my favorite animals, maybe even my favorite one out of all of them, and this is the Turul from Hungary. It is really fantastically done, and honestly, I feel like this is one of the coolest looking animals out there. You have the bird grasping a sword, which is just a really cool design, and then you have that majestic wingspan and the arched back showcasing this animal in motion, feeling very organic. I love the way the wings are done, utilizing the superhero's posable transparent clear element, and then just mounting a ton of clips and feathers to it, such as the Ninjago mech fingers, signifying the little inner parts of the feathers, and really just helping there to be no gaps. Oftentimes, when LEGO winged creatures use this sort of building technique, I always feel like it is a little bit gappy and the feathers just aren't enough, but here I actually think it's pretty much perfect. The usage of the fingers to fill in the gaps really does a lot in terms of making them feel filled in, and I love how you can articulate the head on a mixel joint to just add that extra bit of life to the model. Moving on to the next one here, we have the double-tailed lion from the Czech Republic, and this is another pretty interesting one. My only downside for this model is I feel like the lower legs are very spindly. Even just the usage of something like tan ingots or something on the lower legs to cover up the exposed studs would have been a lot better, because right now it feels a little malnourished to me. That being said, I love the way they did the head. The mane is depicted really nicely, and the tail as well is really clever, utilizing the mop element as two pieces on the back of the tail, which I think works super well, and it's still pretty rare to see that element being used as something other than a mop, so I really like it for what it is. The black Technic pins do sort of stand out on this model, and I definitely do feel like maybe there was a way they could have attached things with mixel joints or clips, but overall I do like the color scheme of it. It's just those lower legs feel very unfinished to me, and I think just including 4 extra 2x2 tiles or ingots would have solved the trick. That being said, I also really like the scenery around it. I like the usage of the mushrooms attached via white sausages and little mushroom caps. It's just a really clever design. Moving on from that, we have our final animal, which is the American bison. I want to point out it's kind of funny how they included two of the exact same sticker because you have it in English and then in its native language, also English. So that's a bit funny, but otherwise, I actually do really like this build. I think that it is one of the more solid builds out of all of these. Yes, the legs for the lower legs do not have extra pieces on the back, but I think I can kind of forgive that because the front legs do have at least a small tile, and they're not quite as long as the lion, so it doesn't bother me that much. You also have the ability to kind of move it around on the stand, and of course you can remove all of these animals and position them which way you want, and unfortunately there is no articulation for the head, but I think for an animal like this, it feels a lot more sturdy and compact not being able to articulate the head, so I actually like it for the design. The dark brown mane on the top in conjunction with the lighter tan horns is a really solid color scheme, and while the actual terrain itself is fairly simple, I do like the usage of the green Wolverine style claws just to add some little tufts of grass sticking out to allow it to have some sort of an environment to roam through. Overall, I think that this is a pretty solid build, and all of these are really nice and cute little representations of each of the animals. But the big question is, how does this look when combined as a display? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think it looks really solid as a combined display. I do like seeing the animals on their own, but I feel like it really comes together when you have all 7 animals positioned around the stand. And again, there's some pretty clever building techniques being used here to make them all be equidistant from each other and be a perfect circle around the Lego brick. The only downside, which is a little strange, and I feel like LEGO probably would have fixed this for a general consumer set, is that the actual podium that the LEGO brick sits on is really fragile. It just tends to wobble and fall off pretty easily. It's only attached by a few studs for something that heavy, so I definitely feel like maybe that could have been slightly improved, but otherwise, I really love the way the display works. Compared to some of the other employee gifts, this one is pretty decent. I like it a lot better than some of the other recent ones. I think it's more interesting than the Friends employee gift, and especially a lot better than the one we got in 2023, which was kind of like a Lego Dots gingerbread house advent calendar, which was a fun activity, but this definitely makes for a better display piece. Compared to some other employee displays though, I think this one maybe is kind of middle range. I definitely really love the upscale Santa, the big Nutcracker, even the Celebration of Lego Technic and the Ninjago set are all really solid ones, so this one feels kind of slightly above average when it comes to an employee gift, but it's still very solid for what it is. As one final note, I did purchase this one myself as opposed to getting it through the LEGO Ambassador Network because I believe there are some changes happening within the Ambassador Network. I don't know if we're going to be getting employee gifts anymore, and since we just didn't ever get this one, I just figured, you know what, I'm just going to buy it myself. I'm also very curious for folks to let me know in the comments if you want to see more coverage of the LEGO employee gifts. If you like this sort of thing, please do let me know because I am actually in the process of sort of transitioning the channel to focusing on different things. I move away from my house and my LEGO collection in under a week, which is kind of crazy to say, and I've kind of been preparing viewers to anticipate some sort of a change here because I'm not going to be bringing any LEGO with me. It's just going to stay put, so expect to see a few different types of videos from the channel that don't necessarily require me to be, well, hands-on with the entire collection. So if you want to see employee gift reviews, let me know before next week because I'm going to see how many I can record between now and then because I'm not bringing anything with me. Overall though, I hope you enjoyed this look at the 2024 LEGO employee gift, and I'm very curious to see what LEGO is cooking for 2025. Let me know what you think of this model. Will you be buying it yourself on Bricklink or on eBay? And how do you like the employee gifts so far? Which are your favorites, which are your least favorites, and how does this one rank? Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Thank you so much, and bye for now.